Good afternoon, everybody, and once again, welcome to Aalto University's public lecture series, Internet Forum. And as you know from the previous lectures, our theme has been during this autumn, the future of technology and Finland. And I was actually thinking about this earlier today, that how fast actually this autumn has gone. We have heard excellent lectures, at least I think so, from different viewpoints when we are talking about the technology, how that is developing, what kind of impacts technology will have both to the world, societies, and individuals' lives. And this is actually the last lecture day for this public lecture series during this autumn. And I think in a way we should a little bit like wrap up what is going to happen and what kind of ideas and thoughts we have heard so far. And I think it is excellent opportunity that we have once again two excellent lectures for this afternoon or evening. And actually we are talking about still very huge topics. So for example, Cristina Andersson, who will be the first lecturer, will talk about how technology will help us to save the world. And actually the last lecture in this lecture series goes to Tomas Nyström, who is the country managing director at Accenture Finland. And the title of Tomas's lecture is What Really Changes. But before going to the lectures, once again to our students, Juho will put to chat the code which you can show your presence in my courses, as you have done previously as well. And now Juho just put that code. So Cristina, are you online?
I am here.
Now I can hear you. How are you doing?
What am I doing? Well, I'm sitting here at home. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I guess many of you over there are sitting at home too, and I'm feeling fine. Thank you. I hope you, Jarno, are feeling fine too.
I am actually. I am sitting at the moment in Oulu, a little bit northern from Espoo. But anyway, while we are via Zoom, it doesn't matter where you physically are located. So in that sense, I think it's more flexible. And I was actually thinking about, we have known each other for a long time. Yes. And I was thinking about what will be the right way to present you, because you are a singer, you love ice hockey.
Yes.
Then you are connecting and doing studies with so many different technology areas, like this very big article in Helsingin Sanomat, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about the robots playing football.
Yes,
but
and sports.
What we put in the internet page, I think the best title for you, if I have to summarize all your great titles to one title, that would be visionary.
Thank you.
And that's why I think I am, and we are very, very happy, Cristina, to have you on board, and very much looking forward to hear your lecture in this open lecture series. So please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jarno. And thank you all of you who are there online and listening to me. And just to continue about presenting myself, because I'm of course going to talk about quantum technologies for the most, and I was thinking, how shall I kind of explain why I'm so interested in quantum technologies, because I'm an educationalist from background, and I'm a leadership consultant, management consultant, and so on. I couldn't build a quantum computer nor even a robot to play football, but why did I study quantum computing in MIT for 2 years ago? And why have I been keeping a Twitter account, Quantum Finland, and Quantum Finland in Facebook as well? It's of course for my own learning's sake, but today when I was thinking that how shall I explain this? So I found out for professional foresight. So that was something I thought, yes, that's something because because there is no clear reason. I just for my own foresight and my own professional development, because I found out that those technologies, they are developing quite fast lately.
Yes.
So why am I so interested in robots, artificial intelligence, and quantum technologies and so forth is that foremost I am interested in learning. And I think in order for us to understand what we should learn, what we need to learn for the future, so we need to understand the technologies, because technologies are the drivers for change many times. Of course, pandemic is too, and climate change and so on, but technologies also drive change. And so I feel that it's important for all of us to know, and that's why I'm also keeping those social media accounts so that as many people as possible could get this information for their own group. But anyway, yeah.
Yes, and I think, Cristina, you are an excellent example of continuous learning and studying new things and having like an eagerness to learn new issues. So like I said, you are participating in so many working groups and different activities in technology as well, or especially in technology. But what would you say if you have to pick one? What is especially the technology what you are concentrating at the moment?
Well, I cannot say one because that's impossible, because what I need to concentrate on is robotics. For example, I'm cooperating with the Danish embassy in Helsinki in order to find out what kind of robotics and projects are there in Finland, so that our countries could cooperate in robotics. So for my living, I'm working with these issues with AI and robotics. And of course, it is very interesting because they are all also emerging still, even though there are lots of mature technologies also in those areas. But then quantum technologies is something that I'm getting more and more invitations to speak and to explain what it is. And of course, nobody can explain what it is. And so it's so weird. That's why I call this weird technologies, because it is truly weird. And so I must say that for my living, artificial intelligence and robotics, and for my future, quantum technologies. But what is connecting these two is learning. And so if one word should only be possible to say, so it would be learning.
Excellent answer.
Yes.
Thank you, Cristina. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Okay, and thank you, and hello everyone. And I just share my presentation here. So, weird technologies that shape our future. And why am I saying weird? Because there are many kinds of weird about technologies these days. And of course, in robotics, there was indeed in Helsingin Sanomat, there was, I think, 2 pages article about robots in sports. And there were many, many weird robots that were doing different kind of sports, being some kind of artificial athletes. And I remember when I started with the robots about 2011, when we published the book Boho Business together with adjunct professor Jari Kaivoja then. So I found out that there was actually then 2012, or then so there was the Saskatchewan University. I hope it was right. I said it right. And they were developing an ice hockey robot. So I love ice hockey. There is a game also tonight. So I'm happy that I can watch ice hockey online. We are not allowed to go to the arena now. So, but this ice hockey robot, it was very, very bad in ice hockey and in playing. It could hardly move. It couldn't get the puck in the goal or anything like that. But there were developing those robots then already, so that they were studying the movements of the robot, so that they could one day develop a robot that could save people, for example, from burning houses and buildings. So I thought it was a valuable project then. And after that ice hockey playing robot, they have been developing several robots that can do, for example, Boston Dynamics, their Atlas robot can do parkour, which is, so it's jumping from one box to another box. And of course, it looks weird, and it can also throw vaults, you know, and it looks very weird. So in robotics side, there is lots of weird things going on. And also AI. AI can be creative. It has been composing music, painting pictures, and making fake faces and all that. So I think that we really need to, with AI, we need to be careful to understand that what is really true and what is not. So that is also weird, that we are used, if we see a face, so we are always connecting that face to a real person. But yeah, nowadays it's not always like that. But anyway, so I Googled also weird technologies, and this is what came up. So there are some weird technologies, and what did I found from this my Googling operation? So was this. Charming rolled toilet paper delivery bot, and they said that it's what is most annoying. It is that when you are in the toilet and you see that the paper is finished and you don't have any rolls there. So they have developed this robot, and this is of course weird to have a toilet paper delivery robot. I don't know if it can catch the paper roll itself, or do you have to assemble the roll there already before, so that you can when you have the need, so it just brings the paper to you. But then I was, because of course I think you are laughing there, and I was also laughing. This was presented at the CES conference this year, and so I was also laughing that what is this again, that there are so many stupid robots in this world. But actually I think it's good to laugh, but they have a role. They have a role because it's also a study for something. And the biggest need, for example, in healthcare is to create robots that can help elderly people and disabled people at homes. And there are not very good solutions yet. But for example, in England, they had developed the Yuva concept, which can be assembled on the roof instead of the floor, that it should be moving on the floor. So every robot that leads us to this point where there is a robot that can do and help with many things at home. So I think it's good development. There are not enough people helping other people to live good life at homes. And so I think this is good development, but we can also maybe a little bit laugh to this one also. And if somebody of you purchases this Charmin robot to your home, so please let me know. I would like to see it in action. It would be very nice. So anyway, so this is a weird robot I found by Googling. But actually, I'm not going to talk about the robots that much. I'm going to talk about the quantum. And why is quantum weird? It is weird because it is weird. And it has the quantum theory also, which it's a big history behind that. But I was just reading a book which is called something like Weird Something. And so they said that this quantum theory and quantum mechanics was also developed in a way that the researchers, they had only an intuition that something like this exists, like Einstein and all those Bohr and everyone. So, and so kind of this theory was developed via their intuition. So it wasn't like they had some kind of hypothesis that, okay, this is quantum, but they had just this intuition and they couldn't make any hypothesis there, but they just started to create the theory, and it actually became. And in quantum in this quantum world, quantum technologies, the quantum, I say the quantum here because it's many things. It's quantum physics, it's quantum mechanics, it's quantum computing, it's quantum sensors and other quantum technologies. So the area is really, really vast. So therefore I'm saying here the quantum. And maybe I'm focusing more on quantum computing here because it's developing quite fast. I'm trying to follow the development every day, and I can see almost every day some kind of breakthroughs. They are maybe small breakthroughs in a very narrow area, but for those researchers and for this science, they can be very big. For example, there is something called the ion trap. You must ask Professor Mikko Möttönen, who is our quantum hero here in Finland, in Aalto University. So he can explain the ion trap better than I do, but this ion trap might be something that would allow us to have quantum computers as laptops. Because now everybody has seen maybe this big valve or something where the quantum computer is, so that it can avoid the noise. But in the future, and make it in cold enough that it can actually function. But maybe in the future, not anymore. And thanks to this ion trap and some other technologies. So what is it then? And this everything, when you see this quantum encryption, entanglement, teleportation, superposition, all these are so weird. What is superposition? It is, superposition can mean that waves, the particles, they move at the same time in waves and particles. But when we talk about quantum computing, so we come to zeros and ones. And now in our digital binary technology, so we have these zeros and one. They can be either or. So it can be 0 or 1, but not 0 and 1. Whereas in a quantum computer, superposition means that they can be both 1 and 0 at the same time and in any position. So there can be an amount of 1 and another amount of 0, and they work together. And this means that these quantum computers, they will be super efficient. And they can in 1 billionth of a second or quicker, well, they can be 1 billionth of a second, faster than the classical computers. So this will really change our computing capacity and what we can do with computers. So we come to entanglement. So what does that mean? Okay, that's a little bit more difficult even to explain what is entanglement. Have you seen the TV series The Wall? At least in Finnish and Swedish television, there is this series The Wall. Okay, the first 4 episodes, they are really boring, but I struggled to through those 4 first episodes. But how this series end, the episode number 8, it is so fascinating. I'm not saying anymore, but there is entanglement going on in the end of this series. So go and have a look at this wall. And entanglement means that there is a particle somewhere and another particle somewhere. And when this one particle experiences some kind of change, so the same happens in this other particle, and they can be very far away from each other. For example, here on Earth and the other one in Mars, like in this wall. What happened? Oh, sorry, no, I was a spoiler here. But anyway, so entangle means this, and this is really weird what happens here. And when we add teleportation to entanglement, which means that we can communicate through these entangled channels. It creates these 2 particles, they create a channel, and the teleportation happens in this channel. And it means that when, you have probably heard that this saying that if a tree falls in the forest and nobody notices. So did it fall at all? So this is about the teleportation, that it's a secure channel, and if a third party comes, so it will be closed. So it's practically impossible to interfere these teleported channels. And these kind of channels, they exist already, for example, in China between some cities, in Austria, and I think Austria and China made already an experiment to connect their channels. So there is quite a lot of happening in this teleportation and entanglement. And what does it mean? It means that one day we will have quantum internet, which is totally secure. And we have had our Vastaamo case here, for example, which shocked the entire country of Finland. So these kind of events won't happen anymore in these days. But then we come to quantum encryption. So quantum encryption means that when there is this entanglement, teleportation, so it is impossible to break these quantum cryptographies. But it means also that quantum cryptographies then can break our traditional digital cryptographies. And therefore, it is so important that we start to, at least states and banks and a bigger corporation, that we start to prepare ourselves to the quantum era already now. That is so important. So if you are listening there and you are working in a company or in any organization or institution and you haven't started to prepare, so you should do it really now. Right after this Tomas lecture, you must go and start preparing, because we don't know the day when these technologies take effect. They can take effect in 5 years or 10 years. But I was listening to a Russian researcher who works for the Rosatom named company in Russia, and Rosatom is named to drive their quantum roadmap. And he said that they are expecting in 2030, they are going to have a general quantum computer that can do many other things than these narrow things, what the quantum computers are now doing. And that means that it comes quite fast. And he also said that if they are having it, so other countries are having it too. And mainly, I think USA and China at least are going to have this kind of general quantum computer that you can use for general purposes. So begin preparations now. Tomorrow it might be too late. Yes. So now I'm sorry, I have these next 10 slides. There are quite a lot of text. I'm not going to read those texts, but I'm sure that these slides can be shared. And there is text so that you can study for yourself what does it mean. So now I'm going to present you 10 benefits of quantum computers, what we could do with these computers. So productivity is one. Of course, we have now also technologies that can still enhance productivity. For example, robots can do it even much better than automation. So that's one opportunity what we can do now. But very interesting is that when we get this sharpness of quantum computing and the computational power, so we can do everything much more effectively. And for example, here we have an example of a robot, welding robot, that can from millimeters to make their sharpness to maybe 1/10 of a millimeter or 100 of a millimeters. I don't know about those figures, but anyway, so in different kind of industries and manufacturing, this quantum computing can make a huge change to productivity. And not to talk about logistics and marketing and all those, but I'm going to logistics a little bit later there. Next one is R&D. So when we can start to have this computational power, we can do our R&D much more effectively. and develop new materials that can make more and more solutions, more and more individual solutions for different kind of areas. For example, we have here a medical industry. They are studying the molecular dynamics, and I was discussing also with the Orion Pharma, and the Julius Sipilä said that actually they are really looking forward to have a quantum computer so that they can make even more individualized medicine and go really to the atom and molecular level to study these medications. And of course, the more accurate we can be in our R&D, that means that we can have faster these products into market. Now we are trying to develop vaccine for COVID-19, and if we had quantum computers that could work with us to develop, so we might or could have had the vaccine already last summer. Next one, climate change. This is one of my favorite topics. I'm working in a startup where we focus on climate change, or even more, we are focusing on the UN SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, also human rights and working conditions and so forth. But about climate change, I think that we really don't know that much about our universe. We know much more than from the times of Isaac Newton and Socrates and all those people. But I think that now we know more, but we know only a part about this fantastic universe. And I think that when we can send quantum sensors to different places of our universe, in space, in forests, in deep seas, in lakes, in different places, and we start to get this data that, okay, this is actually happening. So I think that we can find new solutions to those problems that we are struggling with today. And really, I hope that we get this quite soon, because the Earth is really now in need for our new solutions. It cannot wait much longer. But I'm sure that all those institutions that are, or companies that are developing quantum computers at the moment, so I'm sure that they are also thinking about how they could save the world, the Earth, with the help of these technologies. I also believe that with the help of quantum computer, we are going to be, and quantum materials and all this, that we are going to develop some kind of new synthetic materials or synthetic organisms. We can enhance synthetic biology in a way that helps us to maybe substitute some organisms that have disappeared, but which are vital to our Earth. I hope that this will come true. Forecasting and foreseeing, this is what AI can do very well already now, but even better than in the future with the quantum computer. So, for example, meteorology to forecast the climate and the weather and all those, so it can remarkably help farming and everyone. For example, these flying companies and all those, help them to foresee the weather better and make efficiently their routes, for example, by foreseeing the climate more accurately. So that's something, and not to talk about markets and in business and wherever. And then traffic. Traffic is also so interesting. I have been following now D-Wave company for some time already, and D-Wave, I think they have been working for at least 10 years already with the development of quantum computing, and they are making optimizing. So they have been cooperating with Volkswagen, and I think they made their first try with experiment in Beijing, and they optimized the taxi traffic. Taxis how they could optimize from Beijing center to the airport. And that was already a success. And latest I heard that they did an experiment with the public traffic in Lisbon. And that was also a success. So the buses and the taxis and those, they could optimize so that they could save, for example, gasoline and find smoother routes to their destinations and so on. So this is something what we can do. And not only a traffic on roads, but traffic in our radio megahertz, which in Italy they have been experimenting already, and they have been successful, all these experiments, even though the quantum computer is not at its optimal phase yet. It's not ready yet. It will take years before it is ready for that kind of use, but already now simulating quantum computing, they have had really good results. Then number 6, solving complicated problems. And here I said winning the game of hyper competition. The competition is changing. That time, as a business consultant, I can see that the competition is changing. It's not only the social media, but also what is going on around us. More and more companies, they are talking about responsibility, sustainability, and the responsible companies, they want to contribute to good goals, for example, women's rights, children's rights, humans' rights, working conditions, climate change. And when we put all these things together, the problem or the challenge becomes really, really complicated. And the competition, when I started as a business consultant in 19, so when we talked about competition, so we were talking about price and quality. So, but those days are gone. Now we need solutions to complicated problems, or this complicated environment where they call the VUCA environment, volatile and so on. So, so this is something that when you have a quantum computer and you can really provide those solutions million times, thank you Antti Vasara for saying this, million times faster than your competitors. So I'm sure you will be in good position for making good business also in the future. That's another reason why you should, in your next board meeting, talk about quantum computing, so that you are starting to prepare. If you are not starting any project in your company, but you are putting this idea into minds of your directors group, I think that's important. So next one, individual healthcare. So yes, healthcare, it has been a medicine, it has been changing all the time. Now we know more about cholesterol pills and medication. But what I have been thinking is that the healthcare is still so that you have some kind of symptom and you go to this doctor and you say, I have this symptom. And so they start to treat you from that symptom, that okay, and you become a diagnosis of something, when actually you need to be a human being that is being taken care of and cured in a holistic way. And we are full of these kind of we are full of genomics and metabolisms and different kind of omics in different layers. And then of course we have all our mental health and our environment. With the help of quantum computing, again, we can, on the other hand, create better medication. On the other hand, we can foresee better to have preventive healthcare, and also so that we can have care and operations that cure us and treat us as an individual. So we have personal Medicare at the moment, what we are going to have individualized, which means that you are treated just like you are. And even though me and you, we had the same disease, so it can be totally different. and we need totally, well, maybe not totally different medicine, but anyway different, and that will be possible. Next is information cyber safety. This I was talking about already. So we will have quantum computing, quantum channels, and cyber safety is going to be totally better from where we are now. Now these cyber attacks, they are maybe quite easy for those who can do it. I couldn't do it, but some can, and they can be very, very, very good and effective, as we have seen. But that will change, and that's one reason also why we should start to think about the new encryption methods. It's a quite good, I was going to say that it's good that in Finland we are, because this is technology in Finland we are starting to prepare, so there are, Business Finland has provided good resources for a company that is focusing on this topic. So. Next one, machine learning. This is actually the same what I have been talking about. This is, I have found that in quantum, I'm a member in a quantum, Women in Quantum Network, and there are regularly some webinars where we talk about different aspects of quantum computing, and AI, for example, artificial intelligence is not mentioned that much, but machine learning, yes. Because quantum computers are good in computing, and machine learning is about huge amounts of data. So that's something where quantum computing really can make a difference. And the next one. So what we must understand is that when quantum computer comes, it doesn't destroy all the other technologies. But there are different technologies, and I believe that we will have some kind of hybrid combinations where quantum computer is working together with the classical computer or supercomputer. And now you can see there a huge chip, and this chip is Cerebras Systems, which is 1.2 trillion chip. When the smaller one, which is the biggest chip, is was it 10% of that one. So I think the point is that we need to find the most useful combination of technologies that we use, and that is of course what we are doing now also. So, but in the future, quantum computer, different supercomputers, and this new Cerebras chip computers, they will work together in order to handle all the data what there is. So here, because next speaker is Tomas Nyström, which I really, really admire a lot. He has been doing great things in Finland and in Accenture. So here is from Jaakko Hyvärinen, who is working for Accenture too, and his quote about how we should, what we should really do now, we should start to learn how to formulate the questions we are presenting to the quantum computer in a new way, because we should understand that when we move from digital world, from binary world to world of superpositions, so we need to understand how quantum computer solves problems, and therefore we will need new questions. And this paradigm change from binary world to superpositions world, so it is quite big. I have been listening to lectures by the Armenian president, and he is talking about this lot, that we should start this work already now. The technology is a driver for change, but technology is not difficult, but the difficult part is the social part and the part of the culture. And always this development, there is the technological development, and then there is the development of the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is the hard part, but it is also the easiest part to start with. Ecosystem means education, networks, new businesses, and so forth. So developing ecosystem, we can do that in Finland already now. And there I have very good news to everyone who is in Finland, also to world, that our technology center, VTT, they have now invested to a quantum computer, which will be delivered by IQM company. So it's important that they are making this quantum computer not only because of that computer, but because that computer and that project itself, it starts that ecosystem building, and that's maybe as important as the product itself. So I was also invited to participate in the Finnish government's Futures report, and it aims to year 2040. And if the quantum computer for general use is already 2030, so in 2040 we have already lived 10 years with the quantum computing. And that's something that when we are thinking about the year 2040, many things have changed. I'm sure that Tomas will talk more about this. But if we think that there is no disruption for digitalization, we will be totally wrong. I think quantum computing will do the same thing for digitalization as digitalization did for paper. So we need to be prepared that something else is coming. Nothing is forever. Digital materials, digitalization doesn't go away. No, I'm not saying that, but something else is coming up. And we need to find out what it could be. We must make different scenarios for that. And I was already warned, and now I'm doing something that I was warned about. I was warned that don't talk about that qubitalization, whatever it is, because there are so many people in Finland that make their living with digitalization. So it is very, very dangerous topic to talk about this. But I'm talking anyway, because we need to understand that something else will come up. So here am I, and I really thank Aalto-yliopisto, Aalto University, and Jarno for this opportunity to talk about my ideas. And sorry if my speech was weird, but that was kind of the goal with this speech anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Cristina. Excellent lecture. Once again, I have heard you many times, and it wasn't weird at all.
Good.
Hey, one thing what I immediately have to ask you, because this is something what I have been thinking lately quite a lot. Once again, when I was listening to you and your excellent points, and more or less the same idea or thought what comes to my mind when I have been listening to previous lectures is that, okay, this is a radical development what we will experience because of the development of the technology in the coming years, in the coming decades. Simple question, Cristina, how we humans keep up the pace, what is happening in technology?
Yeah, I can say one word. It is learning. Yeah, it's always that we try to make that, which I found for myself now, studies for professional foresight. So that is so important. Try to find out what is going on in the world, and at the moment, of course, responsibility and sustainability and all these things. So if you're not keeping up with those things, you probably, no, I'm not going to say that you're going to be a loser, but you are not going to find any work, because there is no place anymore where sustainability wouldn't be a big issue, a big question. So these learning, there is nothing else. And one thing what I want to say, and I will quote Mr. Antti Vasara, who was speaking earlier in this series, is that when we think about quantum computing and different kind of investments, so we need to find a new way, new knowledge how to make investments. because if our investment time is, for example, 15 years forward, so we cannot make that investment without understanding how quantum computing would change that investment, investment, yes. For example, in the energy sector, the investment span is, well, more than 50, it's 30, 40 years at least. So we need to...
Yes, I agree with you, but then at the same time, another thought what I have had in my head listening to you and other lectures is that, okay, there are so many important technologies and we have limited resources in Finland, so we can't be the world's best one in every developing technology. This was actually the question that I asked Antti Vasara as well, and I would like to ask you the same issue. What would you say? What are the top technologies that we in Finland should concentrate on?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit old-fashioned way of thinking that we must focus on one technology. We should focus on creating that combination of different technologies that can help us to succeed as a country and to help other countries to succeed as well. So this is because it's not only one technology, it's a combination. So we need to maybe find those critical topics for us, critical problems that we need to solve in next 20, 50, 100 years. And also decide on different combinations of technologies that can help us with that.
Good answer. And hey, Sami is commenting here in chat that awesome insights, totally weird and wonderful.
Thank you, Sami. I love you.
And then Heli S. Would you, Heli, you have a question. Would you like to ask that question to Cristina?
Oh, yes, please. Actually, it's about healthcare and using quantum computing there. I'm aware that in precision medicine, there's a lot of discussion about multiple omics, but how could we take that further to, for example, in nutrition and like holistic well-being?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know if I have an answer to that, but well, that's has a lot to do, for example, with our guts and our inner organs. And I don't know if this is scary, but I think that the solution and one opportunity actually is in those quantum sensors, that if we could have those quantum sensors inside us so that they can bring us this true data about how we are in our different parts of our bodies. So that can give something. But then, of course, we have the mental health, and I'm sure that we can get more information about brain, because our brain is really, that's the weirdest thing in the world, is the human brain. So when we can get more information about that, so maybe we can come to mental wellness part too. Yeah, so if we think as a technology to be helpful in this matter, thank you, Heli, for the question. I think this is it.
Thanks, Cristina.
And Rauno Sarnio is commenting here in the chat that maybe value networking could solve some of the problems we are having today, from value chain to networks.
Yes, absolutely. This is actually what I meant. Thank you, Rauno. This is actually what I meant with the ecosystem. So these value networks, so that the network starts emerging and it builds. And thanks again to IQM and VTT that we have this opportunity to build a beneficial network, which then starts to, people like me come into that network who are kind of bringing their own amateur insights and so on. So then the culture will change in people. People will change the culture. That's for sure. And therefore, value networks are really in the core of this development.
Very well said. Hey, thank you very much, Cristina. Once again, excellent lecture, and we are going forward. Hopefully, you are able to stay online and listening Thomas's lecture as well.
Yes, I am looking forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Cristina. And I can see, Tomas, that you are online as well.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Very well. Were you able to listen the lecture of Cristina?
Yes, indeed.
Any thoughts?
Well, I will build on that for sure. Some of the same themes are recurring, right? So I think I'm here to wrap up the whole series, right? So I will probably touch on many things that people have said before.
Very, very good, and very nice to have you here, Tomas. Actually, I really liked the proposal, what came from you about your title of this lecture, what really changes and question mark, because we have been hearing so many issues from the technology point of view, what will change in coming years and decades, and quite many, especially in the media, are saying that everything will change because of the development of the technology. Is it so? Is everything going to change?
Yes, everything will change, but it's good to understand that there are some fundamental things you need to understand first that's going to change. At the end of the day, everything will change, right? But that is then more or less up to us, right? Nothing will change on its own.
Excellent. Hey, how would you put it in a nutshell? What are you doing with technology, especially in your work in Accenture, Finland, on daily basis?
Well, that's a broad question, right? So
I know.
so we provide services across the board from old to new technologies, right? We help our clients solve their problems. Sometimes they are cost problems and problems related to old technologies, sometimes about building new stuff with new technologies, and sometimes about kind of pushing the boundary of what you can do with technology, right? We're doing interesting projects with blockchain and with AI and with simulation here in the Nordics with our clients, right? So we kind of traverse the spectrum of tech. There's really nothing too old or nothing too new for us.
And you have customers from both public sector and private sector as well.
Indeed.
Yes. Hey, very nice to have you here, Tomas. Very big pleasure for Aalto University and this public lecture series. Please, floor is yours.
Let's see, I'll try to share my screen. Here we go. Can you see my lovely background?
Yes, we can.
Super good. Here we go. All right. So what really changes? I have 5 things I want to talk to you guys about, and then I'll wrap it up at the end, right? And let's see how it goes. So the first thing I want to talk about is freedom. So as technology evolves, we are seeing more and more degrees of freedom. And it's really important to understand what this means. And I typically visualize this in a very simple way when I talk to people about this. So if on the left-hand side on the picture here, you can see a very classical technology stack with kind of classical things, no quantum in here yet, right? Where you build systems, you solve problems by doing everything together. You move from the UA to the logic to data platforms and compute. And a lot of the kind of classical, evolution of IT has been around trying to get this stack to work. And I spent the early part of my life trying to figure out how to make these things work and how do you get this end-to-end thing in play in terms of scalability, reliability, security, and even functionality, right? And what we're seeing today is the breakdown of the kind of technology stack in IT that we're working with, right? Some of this has been going on for a while, and some of this is a bit more recent. But the end of the day, the story is that we are decoupling these things from each other, right? Compute is something you can buy on a tap. You're starting to see platforms forming that are true platforms where you can utilize services. You can get a database as a service. You can get a queue as a service. We start to see applications decomposing. And this is one of the biggest things that we see in IT right now, where the classical kind of monolithical application is breaking down first into smaller pieces, but then also in terms of the logic and data. Data has classically been very deeply embedded into IT systems, being very hard to kind of dig out of them. So we're starting to see data live on its own, become available in real time, and then logic kind of being nicely contained on top of it. Then the user interfaces have been decomposing for a while already. We have all the mobile apps APIs coming around. And then finally, what we're starting to see is the decoupling of all of us from computing. It's becoming seamless. It's already there on our mobile phone. We can use faces to log in. We can use our voice, and we're moving into virtual reality and extended reality and all kinds of things. So logically, the technology is at the point where it's no longer stopping us from building things the way we want to build. And this is a really fundamental difference that's happened now. If you go back 10 years, we really didn't have that level of freedom. We were more stuck in that stack on the left-hand side, but we are now crossing the boundary to the right-hand side where we have abundance of options ahead. And if you think about that from a kind of forward-looking perspective, there's going to be all kinds of new stuff coming all the time, right? The evolution of technology is not going to stop. The evolution of technology will just accelerate. We just heard about quantum computing, but there are many, many other things that will happen as well, right? The left-hand side is kind of my own personal list of things to look after right now. But there's a dotted box at the bottom saying that there are more things on the way. And all of these things will drive more degrees of freedom. Now, if you think about this from an IT perspective, we're now moving truly into a kind of a bits and bytes world, a digital world where there's really very little physical left. The compute, of course, needs to be physical. You need to have boxes that either do quantum or kind of more traditional analogic, ones and zeros. You need to have disk and networking things. But then as you can buy these as services and more, you solve your problems purely in the digital space today. And that gives you enormous flexibility to do things the way you want to do them, or do things you really want to do. Now, of course, this is not only about IT technology, it's a broader topic, right? So we see the same evolution of degrees of freedom emerging in other areas. Now, of course, when you talk about the physical world, it's going to be slower, but we're seeing a lot of advancements in manufacturing, biotechnology. We just spoke about precision medicines here with Cristina. We see material science is a rather interesting topic for Finland. We're seeing a lot of interesting use of wood to substitute other materials, break down wood and make things that replace plastics or ceramics. I was just looking here the other day at a Finnish startup that's making kind of wood-based materials that you can do bathtubs from, right? They look really, really nice. Or energy production, right? The big topic on where do we produce energy and what can you do at home, for example, right? So things are becoming more modular and breaking apart, and that's great. However, if you have many, many more options, then you can of course do many, many different things. And the question is then, what should you do? What is the right thing to do? And that's the second thing I want to talk to you about. So if you have freedom, then you have more responsibility of actually doing the right things. So decision making will become immensely more important because of this. And we will have a fundamental shift in how we need to make decisions going forward. And Cristina alluded a bit of that at the end when she said, how long is, for example, the decision-making horizon? Or do we need to prepare in advance for quantum computing? So decision-making becomes very interesting. And I have this slide I use. It's a bit from an IT perspective available, but I think it gets the message through on how different decision-making needs to be already today. Here on the left-hand side, you can see what I call kind of old school decision-making, or how we used to make decisions when technology was not a big business differentiator, right? It was more a back office, it was more automation, it was more an efficiency thing. But now when technology is the soul and heart of almost any business, then you need to make your decisions in different ways. And I will gonna replace all of these things on the left-hand side with something new on the right-hand side. So first of all, in a classical model, many people or organizations delegate execution to someone, and you just get it told to do something, like classical IT business relationship. Business has budget, they decide we need to do this, and IT are told to go and do it, right? And then they do it the best way they can. Today, that's of course breaking down. We see much more working together, across company borders with your clients, with your suppliers, but also inside companies, mixing business and IT, moving to product-centric organizations, and general just thinking of how we kind of glue the teams together in different ways. So we work together and we just don't delegate and ask somebody to execute on a decision that somebody else made. Consolidation is a classical theme. Of course, the less moving parts, the less can go wrong. The simpler we keep it. In IT, consolidation has been good because then you can put as much data and processing in one box, and it's kind of easy because then you don't need to integrate a lot. But then in today's world, when you need agility, you need to have speed. Consolidation is, of course, a good alternative, but it's not the only one. So you need to much more structurize and think through, like, where I'm going to separate things and give them a bit more freedom. Where am I going to, commoditize and put things together where I kind of drive scales and efficiencies, right? So much more complex to make this decision instead of just kind of going the old way route of consolidating everything. Outsourcing, the same thing here. In IT, a lot of outsourcing have happened, happens in other industries as well, where you give, some other people the right to execute your process on your behalf because it's more cost efficient. Today, the balance between what we do internally in a company and what you outsource is changing. You need to figure out what skills you need to have, and you need to find a balance between kind of doing everything on your own versus giving everything to somebody else, right? And that I call right sourcing. In general, there's no silver bullets, nor should you do everything like big bang to everything. So we have all kinds of these new phenomenons popping up all the time, and there is always this kind of a thing that we should go after, right? Like product-centric organizations could be one thing, agile could be another thing. None of these are bad on their own, but many times if you just apply them blindly, you might run into all kinds of problems. So decision making needs to be much more measured and controlled. You need to understand deeper where you're going to go. By products versus defined patterns. So typically when you have a problem, you kind of try to find somebody else who solved it, and then you're going to buy a piece of product and kind of use it to solve your problem. Today, because we're moving in a fast-paced world where your problems are probably a bit unique compared to the neighbor's problems, you really need to think about, how do I solve, what is my problem? How do I decompose it? What are the pieces I need to have to make it work? And then you kind of fill those pieces with the right products you can find. And if you don't find any products, then you might actually build some of them on your own, right? We're past one-time big changes. It's a continuous journey. You need to understand where you're going to go, admitting to yourself that actually, I'm not going to reach it, right? So you might have a vision 10 years out, but I very well know that if I end up there in 10 years, I'm probably in the wrong spot. It's going to continuously evolve, and it's going to be out of reach all the time. You need to be able to kind of change and build wherever, in your organization, in your IT landscape, in your technology house. We've been living a lot of, add-on times here, right? You build on top, you build on the side, because touching your heart, your core has been maybe too hard or too difficult. But today, digitalization has hit all the spectrum of processes, and it's hitting all your core processes as well. So you cannot differentiate anymore by creating a mobile app or running analytics on the side. You really need to think about, how do I change my core processes? Because that's where the core happens, right? And that's where you want to differentiate. And that might be kind of tucked away somewhere where it's actually quite hard to change today. And then in general, cost reduction, in general across doesn't really make sense, but you really need to kind of look at, changing the mentality of cost cutting to one of investment so you can reduce total cost. And technology today can really do that. Of course, we see a lot of that on the short term. There's all kinds of automation, but in the long term, this decision making is the really only way to change total cost down the road, because you really, really need to make sure now that I'm not going to end in troubles 3, 4, 5 years out anymore, right? That is the big challenge for decision making, solving the freedom problem and figuring out where I'm going to go in the long term, right? Now, this is a big topic. I could speak about this for hours, but I just wanted to kind of give you this one-page summary on decision making. So we have freedom. Assuming we make the right decisions, we will have growth. Why am I so confident about this? Well, we've studied this very deeply. Not we alone, many other companies are looking into this and have looked into this, but there is a strong correlation. So if you're in a business and you want to grow, the formula is, of course, very simple. You need to be, have many things in play, but if you don't utilize technology, it will be very hard to grow. You need to use, let's say, do three things, right? First of all, you should use as much technology as possible. But that might be kind of counterintuitive. Why should I just maximize the number of technologies? You should maximize the number of technologies and then the number of processes these are used, right? So if you kind of take AI as an example, if you use AI in a proof of concept, something you're in a customer chat, that's cool. That's great. You get some learnings. But truly the impact of AI is when you start to apply it across all your processes, from sales to manufacturing to delivery to support to service, internal processes around HR or finance, right? That's when you get leverage. And then finally, you should do this in a collaborative way where every part of the organization is participating. You put, collaborative decision making in play across business and IT. And now what you see here in front of you on this slide is actually results of research where we looked at these three things. And you can see the top line, the highest curve here. That's those companies that do these three things. So companies who succeed in applying technologies broadly across in a collaborative manner, they grow double the rate compared to those organizations that don't do this. And this is nothing to do about where you start. It's about those who can engage on the road, they will succeed, right? So technology is very important from a growth perspective. Now, so what should you do then with that technology? And this is where we get into the kind of really interesting piece. So we many times look at technologies and then we kind of try to figure out what can I do with this tech. And we in Accenture, we create a technology vision that we kind of come up with every year. The technology vision is not really a technical vision. It's a vision of what you can do with technology. And this year, the vision is all about people. Like Jarno, your question earlier, people are becoming the important factor in the evolution of technology. You need to get people right, otherwise you can't anymore take advantage of all of this. And there's endless possibilities on how you can do this. And that's what we've explored in our tech vision, which we call the post-digital world, putting people first. And I want to share a few examples from the tech vision, kind of giving you a bit of examples and insight what various organizations around the world are doing to put technology in play to capture, let's say, endless possibilities with a human angle in mind. So let's first talk about the first trend in the vision. There's 5 trends in this vision, and I'll just have one slide for each trend, right? So the first one is the I in experience. So how do we kind of take care of people and humans in the experiences we build with technology? And this is an example from McDonald's. So if you think about fast food business, a lot of customers coming in, and you might have a lot of data around what customers buy. You might even identify your customers, so you make it easy for them to order. You know how much food is kind of needed every day. You have the massive analytics engine running in the back office in the cloud, and it's kind of giving you all the insights on what's going to happen. But if you look at that, you really bypass the employees of the company, the people who work in the restaurant, right? You just optimize throughput and make sure you got everything in store so you can serve all your customers. But how do you kind of build an experience that takes care of the people as well who work there. Maybe it's a it's a rainy day. Maybe there's that means that there's going to be a lot more traffic. Maybe people are a bit more angrier. They want to wait for the food if they're kind of queuing in the car park. And how can we build an experience then that's better for the employees? So what McDonald's is doing, they're giving agency to the employees, right? This is a pilot in the US where instead of for example, proposing what we expect people to buy at this point in time, because it's a hectic time window, we're actually going to give default choices that we recommend to customers that are simpler for the people working in the restaurant to manufacture. So we take down their workload, and we kind of think about them and kind of think about their well-being. We of course are going to sell the full menu still, but we're focusing on kind of building an experience where they can on their own, in the restaurant decide, actually, we should now focus on these simpler items. Let's put these two on the top and let's push them on the advertising board so people pick a bit more of them. So we kind of get the queue down and we don't have as much stress here, right? That's about kind of thinking about the individual. Another example of that is Volkswagen, which was already used by Cristina in a quantum example. We also had that in our Tech Vision last year, where Volkswagen is using quantum and AI and all kinds of things to kind of manage or kind of study traffic patterns. But this is more about the car design process now, and using AI to help designing cars. Now, of course, we're not at a point where you can just press a button and the AI designs a car. That doesn't really work. But what we can do is we can have a collaborative process between the human and the AI computer, right? And we all know, we've seen this picture of generative AI designs, which are like organic things, like they look really weird, and no human could ever really come up with the thing, but it's kind of light and it's very kind of, maybe it's kind of very durable or resistant, and it kind of optimizes the use of material, right? So this is what they're doing to kind of figure out car designs, right? So they kind of do a version, then they kind of give it back to the machine. The machine looks at it and chews around a bit, spits out a few alternatives, and it goes in an iterative fashion, kind of, giving people still the kind of the guiding of the process, but using the computer to help the human actually design something which they probably could not do completely on their own. Again, giving humans a better experience in the work in this space. Now, the third one, this is about smart things, right? So digitalization, or even the post-digital world now, we will have smart things like, everything will be smart more or less, right? And all of you will probably kind of look at buying something or probably getting something in this space for Christmas, right, soon. And the problem with smart thing is that you of course need to maintain and support them, and there is a complete different life cycle in terms of customer engagement and support that you need to take care of, right? How do you upgrade things? How do you kind of serve things? What do you do if you brick it in, by mistake and whatnot, right? Now, Signify here is it's kind of Philips Lightning. So it's like Philips make light bulbs, and now they spun off that business into, it's a company called Signify, but they sell light bulbs, right, essentially, or very advanced light bulbs, where you can kind of, they have chips and wireless pieces, and you can kind of programmatically then, set on the lighting and kind of colors and stuff like that. But they also moved into a service business where they provide lighting as a service. So you can, as a shop, you can buy a service from them, and Signify will come in and install everything, and as a fee, you will then have a complete out of the kind of box solution, which gets lifetime service. And for Signify, this is interesting because they can of course then optimize things. They can kind of replace things when they need to be replaced. They can reuse some pieces probably in their manufacturing, so it becomes much more economically friendly, environmentally friendly. And right now, if you look at their website, some of the latest things they are doing is to kind of start pushing out lights that have ultraviolet, in them, UVC, so they can start kind of use light to, for example, kill germs or potentially viruses as well, right? And they provide this as a service. It's kind of a advanced product. It makes sense for the kind of somebody to buy it if you're, let's say, a grocery store. But it's also, an opportunity for them to provide something which, really hasn't existed before. They can do it in an environmentally friendly way, and they can kind of push the barriers of innovation, for example, moving into the health space right now. And right now, that's a big trend, and most companies are in some way going to be health companies in this era we are in. Right now, you might get all vaccines next year, and this might kind of blow over, but there might be the next thing after that. So, healthy living and taking care of ourselves is kind of on the top mind of every organization going forward, right? That's unavoidable. All right, the next one is then robots in the wild. So this is about mechanics and machines, right? Which is an interesting and kind of fascinating topic where, it's very difficult to kind of do fine-grained things. Standalone moving, even running has been hard, right? We've seen Boston Dynamics do these things, and they have, this competition every year, and they do all kinds of weird stuff all these days already, kind of going into a car, going out of a car, whatever, right? But then if you look at that from a kind of how to apply it then in other areas, and agriculture is a really interesting space where it's very labor intensive, right? If you want to kind of go and weed, for example, big areas of plantation. And now we have, FarmWise and some other companies kind of building robots that do especially this, right? Big things on wheels, that they go over the weeds, and they have cameras and AI and, whatnot in there, but they also have mechanics and robotic arms, so they can go in and actually remove pieces and do things and give individual care for every plant that is actually unique. And of course, they're gonna, move beyond weeding to kind of plantation and kind of maybe other activities over time, right? So we see really, really interesting things happening in the robotics that have a real, real life impact. And it's actually kind of, again, taking in a sense over, jobs that are kind of, are not very demanding, but extremely complex from a human perspective, and freeing up humans to do more complex and advanced things. In general, we believe that, from a human perspective, computing, AI, robotics will not kind of take over humans or kind of make us lose our jobs. That will not happen. They will kind of eat into the jobs and the activities that really, are kind of repetitive or kind of easy to do. And then, humans will focus on the more value-adding topics like what I'm going to talk about next in a few minutes. And then final example of this this kind of breakthrough thing that we've seen this past few years, and is in the tech innovation around innovation, or in the tech vision around innovation, is what some of the high tech companies with Disney are doing in terms of how we produce movies. So if you look at the new version of Lion King, it's a virtual reality environment, right? So it's a rendered 3D landscape, and you can then roam in the camera there, right? So you can kind of have the whole scene virtually, and then you can decide, I'm gonna capture the shot from here or there or left or right, right? And you can make infinite adjustments. And the same goes for the Mandalorian, human action movie, right? Where they use this kind of big computer generated backgrounds on screens, and they put actors in front, and the acting actually is kind of completely different when you actually see something behind you, and not just the green screen as actors usually see these days, right? Again, bringing in a bit of human touch into something as being kind of computerized and rather kind of difficult probably to kind of act in even. Right now it's much simpler, right? So we see a lot of these opportunities and advancements as we go forward. And this really brings me to point 5, which is the business of innovation, right? So how are you going to capture all of these things? How are you going to kind of think out of the box? Those 5 examples are great out of the box things, right? Where you need to do things differently. And every company needs to be in the business of innovation. Every public sector agency, every government needs to be in the business of innovation, right? Now, if you look a bit at where innovation is going and what's being, where do we put our innovation money? Here's a bit of a matrix. So we have columns which show the type of kind of innovation you are looking for. So incremental, breakthrough, so kind of improving something quite a lot, and disruptive, actually changing it. And then in the rows here, or the y-axis, we can see where are you targeting? Are you looking at your legacy kind of existing park of processes or technologies? Or then moving up, are you really looking at something new emerging, which maybe, as a business, you're not doing at all today? The purple bars show where the money goes today. As you can see, most of the money goes into, legacy and a bit into emerging. And the gray then shows where companies believe their money should go in the future. Now, there's some interesting angles on this. First of all, if you just compare the length of the bars, it looks like, well, there's going to be much more money put into innovation, which is good. We can also see that the money is spreading out more equally to the top and to the right, that's where breakthrough things happen, right? So if let's talk about AI, right? Those who really succeed in AI, for example, are those who think 10x, right? So you really kind of go in for something to make a bigger change. Of course, doing incremental small things are good, but that's not going to change your bottom line or top line as an organization, right? And the third thing is that there's really a lot here at the bottom row around the legacy, right? So if you are an organization in a business, or if you're in a government entity, it's not that easy to do something completely new. Everybody's of course looking at doing new things, but it's important to make sure that what you're doing today is future-proof as well. And that means innovation in the legacy core. And that's where you also see much more emphasis now on disruptive innovations, right? How can we do something we do today completely different tomorrow, regardless of industry? Are you a bank, insurance company, retailer, telco, whatever, right? If you just do what you do and optimize it and incrementally kind of invest in it, then 5 years out, your competitive landscape probably looks rather different and probably quite bad from your own perspective. So innovation is important. Well, at least people want to put money into it, let's put it this way. Now, if we then look at how do you do innovation, and if you look at companies who succeed, the same companies, when I started the presentation with that curve around growth, not only do they grow because they use technologies widely and broadly and kind of work well within the organization, you also are successful only if you drive innovation top down. So innovation is a top management agenda. And the further you kind of distance yourself from the leadership in the organization, the more levels of hierarchies you have in between, the smaller the impact will be. Now, of course, bottom-up innovation is very, very important, because then you get all those good ideas bubbling up, or you get incremental innovation happening. But really, you need that top-down engine as well. And that top-down engine consists of these 7 things here, right? You need to be hyper-relevant. You need to use a network, as discussed earlier today, right? Build networks. You can't do everything on your own. You need to use tech. Well, you need to have talent. Talent is very important today. Automation and computers will take over the kind of more simpler task, and it's important that we use all our capabilities as individuals to kind of focus on the more advanced things around technology today. If you are in that space, we need to use data. This has been going on for a long time, and finally, with freedom, we actually have the possibility to tap into data in real time, regardless of what happens. Let's say you log into an online system today, most likely whoever runs that online system has no clue that you logged in, at least if it's a traditional company, right? Facebooks and these guys, they of course will keep live tab on who's where. And the only reason somebody maybe knew that you logged into an e-commerce site is because you actually placed an order. But they have really zero ability to engage with you while you are logged in, because they don't know it's you. They're, it's maybe on a log file somewhere, right? It's about being inclusive. Inclusive means a few things. One means that you're inclusive in the whole value chain. You don't optimize yourself. You actually make sure that everybody, from a business perspective, your suppliers, they're also doing well. And inclusive is a big topic from a human perspective, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. And then finally, you're asset smart, which, if you want to translate it, means that you really focus. So you divest things that are less important and you focus on the right things. And this is how you kind of run a strong innovation architecture in your organization. Now, that needs to be supported by a very important topic around equality and diversity. it's proven fact that if you run an equal opportunity organization, that means that, regardless of ethnical background or kind of gender or sexual orientation, and maybe some other things as well, right, that I'm not maybe aware of today, you have an equal opportunity for everybody to be successful. And then on top of that, if your work base or employee base is also diverse, so you kind of talk about equality, but you actually have a diverse workforce that covers equality in many dimensions, then you're likely to be 11 times more innovative than those companies who don't pursue this. This is very important, and one of the biggest challenges we have in the technology space today to, for example, get women into tech and so forth, right? A topic that we at Accenture, for example, are committed to kind of help change. So, yeah, no, I don't know, you hadn't seen my slides in advance, but here we go. So everything will change. Now, if you get that innovation engine going, you get the talent, a diverse talent, you make the right decisions to drive the right technologies. So you make, innovations that differentiate and enable the future. Everything is possible. And from an individual perspective, if you look around and wonder, why is this not happening? Then it's very simple. That's an opportunity for you. There really is nothing that's stopping anybody anymore from doing these things. And it's really up for us to just execute on innovation. And that's my final takeaway, right? So we have all the capabilities we need. There's going to be new stuff in the future for sure. But today, it's all about getting stuff done. And then we can all enjoy the benefits. Thank you. I think that was my last slide. And I used roughly my half hour, so we can have time for some questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Tomas. How much actually these issues, what you were presenting in a very, very good way, how much, especially when you are working with your clients, how much is it like changing the mindset or changing the culture actually?
It is very much so, right? Because that decision-making slide I showed is very much a culture slide of how we usually run things, right? Yeah. And it is a massive shift. Now, we of course see a lot of companies attacking that in some way, right? We see a lot of change happening, and that's good. But still, to really balance that decision-making model requires a big cultural shift in how you lead organizations. And how do you get innovation in there, right? And that is still ongoing. Yeah, absolutely. What would you say? This is one question what I have been asking from many lecturers, because we have so many students also online, and they are thinking about, okay, what kind of skills I should develop and have when I'm entering to the work life. What would be your guideline to the students? Well, first of all, don't worry too much about it, because in your lifetime, the world will change so much that you probably need to kind of learn new skills quite a few times over your journey, right? However, there's really not any wrong skills either. So, if you study at Aalto, you can study kind of, engineering, you can study economics. Those are all good things, right? The important thing is to study something, and become a deep expert in that, right? When I talk to people who come into Accenture on their first day of employment, I tell them many things, and the two things I usually tell them in terms of advice is, become known of something and ask for help. And then, life is a continuous journey, right? Absolutely. I've studied a lot of things in my, I've studied at Aalto in my youth, so to say, and even though I learned a lot, over the 23 years at Accenture, I've learned quite a lot of new things I never learned in school. Are you studying something at the moment, Tomas? Yes, well, I actually just completed some cloud certifications, because that's where everything is going. So I did some cloud certification work in Accenture. We study all the time. There's all kinds of stuff coming in, various topics. And I have some personal topics I put in my drawer for the break between Christmas and New Year to look into more coding kind of stuff, right?
Sounds good. And I have to say that, well, not only you and Cristina, but many others who has been giving lectures during this autumn, they have actually emphasized the same thing, that they are also personally studying continuously, trying to study new skills and learn new issues. And I think that kind of eagerness to learn is something what is common for all the lectures during this autumn.
Yeah, indeed, right. And that the kind of curiosity for the future and kind of learning new things is really what drives me, right? And that's why I'm in the job I am today, because I want to see and learn new things and use them to deliver value for clients. It is my fuel, so to say.
Yes. Hey, my final question to you, Tomas, is that if you would give this same lecture talking about the future of the technology in Finland after 10 years, how different your presentation would be?
So I tried to make this as timeless as possible, right?
Yeah.
Because I think the topics of freedom, of choice, of thinking out of the box, and driving innovation and enabling growth will still be there, right? I think that's the timeless equation we need to get right.
Yeah.
Then the examples will be different. The technologies will be different, for sure, right? The world will look different, but that is the DNA we need to build into our organizations to be able to be successful at that point in time. There might be, you never know. It's really hard to predict the future, right? Are we reaching kind of singularity at some point in time? What, and especially kind of interesting are the advancements in kind of classical engineering or chemistry areas, right? Where we could see completely new areas of engineering emerge. But for all of these, that same formula around innovation and use of technology and decision making applies. That is the new kind of formula to run organizations.
Yes. I don't see any questions at the moment in the chat, but does anyone want to share any comments, questions to Tomas?
No questions.
No questions. But hey, thank you very much, Tomas, for taking this time and giving this excellent lecture in this public lecture series. And stay healthy, and all best to you and Accenture as well.
Thank you, Jarno. Thanks for having me.
And thank you everybody for attending today and also during this autumn. And all these lectures, including Cristina's and Tomas's lectures, there will be recordings available, something like within 1 week. And there are recordings already of the previous lectures, and you can find the links to those recordings in the same web page where this internet forum is being presented. So thank you everybody for attending. I am sure that we have more questions and thoughts than in the beginning of autumn, but that was actually the aim of this public lecture series, to raise new ideas, insights. And I have to say that I have been very, very happy to have these kind of very high quality lectures during this autumn. So I wish you all the best and also stay healthy. Thank you very much.